This is a 1.44 megabyte floppy disk. That might not sound like a lot of storage, but we have ways of stretching this thing out. And today, we're not only going to install a full bootable Linuxy operating system on this floppy disk, but we're going to install multiple servers and have them serve a web page from the floppy disk. This floppy disk might explode, so stay tuned. And if you enjoyed tormenting obsolete computer storage, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. Now, I got the idea for this ridiculous concept after watching a video from my good friend Bruce of Brankus Creations. He turned a vintage Macintosh into a web server, and I thought, hey, I can do way better than that. And by better, I mean worse. So today we're going to install a bootable, usable Linux-ish operating system on this floppy disk, along with a TCP/IP stack, network device drivers, and the web server software itself. This sounds daunting and impossible, but truth be told, this actually already exists. Everything we need to accomplish this is already baked into a really cool project that I've been a huge fan of for years. It's called Elks. No, not that kind of elk. This is the embedded Linux kernel subset. And if you've ever run into me at an event, you've probably heard me talking about it non-stop. To paraphrase the GitHub README, Elks provides an early fork of Linux for systems based on Intel's 16-bit architecture. That includes systems like the 286, 186, and even back to the 70s with the 8088 and 8086, providing a real functional Linuxy shell on absolutely ancient systems. But it's not just a proof of concept, it's a real OS tuned for embedded applications with networking drivers, TCP/IP, and a whole bunch of applications baked in. And Elks provides something else pretty special. Let's go over to the GitHub page. So here is the Elks GitHub page, and I'd like to draw your attention specifically to these memory requirements. Stock images require 512K of RAM. Not gigs, not megabytes, K. Elks itself requires 256K of RAM to operate. And you can even build an Elks system in as little as 128K of RAM. And once you see what Elks is capable of, that's going to seem almost impossible. So if we go to releases here on the Elks GitHub page, they actually provide floppy disk images even for as little as a 360K floppy disk. In fact, they've got all kinds of images for whatever you're trying to write this to. We, of course, are using a 1.44 megabyte floppy disk, so we're going with the FD1440 FAT image. And once we have that downloaded, we can just copy it to a floppy disk using the built-in macOS DD utility, which of course is a GNU utility, which means it's on Linux. Windows users, you'll have to find other arrangements. But here on Mac, I can do disk-util list to find my USB floppy disk, which is right here at dev disk4. Then I can sudo dd input file equals, and I can drag the image file from downloads, output file equals dev disk4. We'll do a status equals progress so we can see a progress bar. And we'll let that write, and then we should have a working bootable Elks floppy disk. I'm also going to go to the retroweb.com because they have a ton of resources for old motherboards like the one we're working with today, which will be the fastest 486 that I've ever used. Now, even though Elks here is designed for a 16-bit system, there's nothing stopping us from booting Elks on something more modern. But since we want this to be a web server, our only limitation is network card that Elks actually has a driver for. So our hardware platform is going to be this, a lovely Socket 3 486 board, along with an Etherlink 3 ISA networking card, because Elks has drivers for it baked in. So really we just need to set up this battle station and boot the floppy. Oh, and I guess design an entire web page that still fits on whatever is left over on this floppy disk. I also just so happen to have a 120 MHz AMD 486 DX4 we can toss in, so you know what that means. we get to play with jumper settings. Hooray! Woohoo! Yay, jumpers! Right after this quick word about today's sponsor, Delete Me. Today's internet is a weird place. Everything you do and say online is analyzed, cataloged, chopped up, and sold on the open market of data brokers. And it's not just shady advertisers buying this data. Your private info can wind up in the hands of scammers, fraudsters, phishing schemes, and worse. Oh good, another political text. This is exactly the kind of thing that Delete Me can help to address. I've been using Delete Me for well over a year now, and they help me control my personal information in ways that I was never able to accomplish trying to do it manually. They constantly scour the internet for my info and report back to me exactly which data brokers and websites have it. And then, well, they delete me. There's even a privacy advisor that I can reach out to at any time. Just look at my listings removed over time. That big spike in the beginning where they removed the huge amount of data that was just floating out there on me, and then a consistent removal of all the data that keeps popping back up. Get 20% off Delete Me consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/actionretro and use promo code ActionRetro at checkout. Thanks again Delete Me for sponsoring today's video. Man, what an incredible resource theretroweb.com is, providing all of this stuff cataloged and easy to search. So we are going to need to look at, that's all RAM configuration. We need this CPU type selection. So we've got our little map of jumper locations here and appropriate jumper settings. Let's see if we can't set this up real quick. And as is tradition, instead of a case, we're just going to drag-a-1 this thing directly on the desk. Okay, I've got just a video card and keyboard connected. Let's see if the jumpers are set correctly, and this thing will boot at 120 megahertz. All right, there we go. We're at 120 megahertz on this AMD 486DX4. Okay, so all of my 486 boards are giving me a hard time, but I found something even better. It's a Pentium board that has 3 ISA slots, so we can use our supported ISA Ethernet card, just like so. Just gonna stick a little thermal compound on here. As usual, not too much, not too little, the exact right amount. So here it is, our extremely low-spec web server, a Pentium of some description, ISA Ethernet card by 3Com, and the only storage hooked up to this machine is this single floppy drive, into which we will place this single floppy disk containing ELKs. Let's see if it boots. Oh, there it goes. It's booting. All right, so we will have to do a bit of network configuration. It's so funny how every time I do something, it hits the floppy disk. Oh my goodness. All right, let's do vi boot opts, hitting the floppy disk. All right, now in here, we're just going to change the local IP to match my network, 86. Let's give this a host name. How about floppy server? Yeah. And now let's go into etc. And we need to edit net.config. My gateway is 192.168.1.1. Netmask is correct. Default link layer for us is the 3Com. And down here, we're very interested in this. Daemons to start at startup. Right now, when it connects to the internet, by default, it will start up Telnet and FTP servers. 2 servers running on here. We're going to turn that into 3, because we're going to start HTTP as well. And now I'm just going to do a quick reboot. All right, yeah, it does see the Ethernet card right there with the MAC address. I think we're going to be good to go online. All right, so we can do net show, and yeah, it does have our settings in here, so we can do net start. KTCP is the TCP stack they used. And yeah, it worked. Look at that. We are online. We have an IP address, .86, and we've started HTTP, Telnet, and FTP. So I don't think we have ping on here, no, but we do have HTTP get. Let's see if we're online. Frogfind.com / name not found. pget frogfind.com. Look at that. We are online off of a single floppy disk. That's ridiculous. All right, so technically we should have a web server running locally at .86. Let's go to the modern computer and try to connect to it. All right, let's see if there is a web server at .86. There is! Look at that! We are connected to a web server running off of a floppy disk. That's freaking wild. All right, let's see if we can telnet into it. We sure can. I should probably give this a password if we're going to connect this to the internet. Something strong and secure. Definitely not just the word action in all lowercase. Yeah, look at that. Well, I guess we need to make a website to host on here, so I've busted out the old Sony Mavica. Take a few floppy disk pictures of the floppy disk drive. Oh my god, look at this. We are FTP'd into the floppy disk. We're going to upload directly from this floppy disk to this floppy disk over FTP. That's never going to get old. I guess we need to create some kind of a web page too. Okay, I've written a simple web page in basic HTML. No criticisms of my HTML quality, please. We're just going to upload that directly to the floppy disk. Oh my god, it's freaking working. Look at that. It's loading JPEGs from a floppy disk. And I have accidentally put the same picture all 4 times. Why don't we go over to the Elks system itself and fix it with Vi? Okay, and quick jump cut to I have set up a dynamic DNS on NoIP for the floppy web server. So it should be serving and accessible. So if we go to floppy.ddns.net, it's a server error. That's weird. Let's try it in Chrome. Oh, there it is. It's alive. I don't know why it didn't work in Firefox. Maybe it just needs a minute to propagate. But look at that. Okay, I'm going to give this a second to settle, and then I'm going to post it to Hacker News, and we're going to go watch the log live to see people visiting our floppy disk. That's ridiculous. And check this out, we can watch people try to connect to it live on the screen. Oh boy, it's going. It has lots of complaints, but it is serving. Oh man, it doesn't even want to load the pictures now. That doesn't bode well for connecting this to the wider internet. Okay, everything is actually working. Look at that. And what I've done is send the URL to the Wayback Machine for a backup because I'm sure this is not going to last very long. Let's post this to Hacker News and watch the floppy drive go crazy as people try to connect to it. Web server on a single floppy disk. All right, well, here we go. Oh yeah, look, we've got customers. I don't like all this right to unknown socket stuff. But yeah, there's real people connecting to the floppy disk. Now, it's not hitting the floppy every time, I guess, because it's caching. Probably a good thing. All right, is this still up? Yeah, website's still up. Still hitting the floppy disk. You know, I don't think it's happy. I don't actually understand what this error means. Sysbreak 7 fail. I think it has something to do with running out of memory, but I don't know why it keeps happening. But when that happens, the whole thing freezes. Yeah, now the page isn't responding at all. Let's restart this. Yeah, now it's back up again. I don't know what keeps crashing, but something is not happy. That floppy drive is really floppy driving. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know what this Sysbreak 7 error means or how to fix it. And I keep having to restart the server because once I start getting those errors, it stops responding. All right, we're just going to go into boot ops here and edit this so we automatically start networking at boot up. So that is a full web server running on a single floppy disk, and not just the web server, but the OS, the stuff we're serving, everything in 1.44 megabytes. I think this kind of experiment is the perfect thing to illustrate how computer bloat has really gotten out of hand. What do we need to spend $800 on 6 terabytes of memory for? I've got everything you need in 1.44 megabytes. But that'll do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more stuff like this, please subscribe down below, and thank you very much for watching. And I just want to give a very special thank you to all of my Patreon supporters and channel members. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for supporting me and supporting this channel and all the weird stuff I do. I am so very grateful, and I just could not do this without you.